Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today I have with me Miguel Guarda, who is currently the managing partner and principal at MG Pacific Homes. Now, he's also the principal at Authority Equity AI. Now, Miguel, can we get started more with your background and how led you to what you're doing today?
Well, I've been participating in the real estate sector for close to 20 years. And we have seen since, 2000, prior to 2008, since the market crash. And that's how I started my journey in real estate. And the reason why we're now with Authority Equity AI is just because we noticed throughout these 20 years what's happening with not only the political sector, but also the entrepreneurial and these principles and mandates that are losing capital in the global economy. And so we can dive more into all those details. But for now, that's been my background. It's been always in real estate.
Mm-hmm. Now, what was it specifically? Were you in as a realtor or as an investor?
An investor. So Excellent. When it comes to multiple units, buildings, residential, it's been more in the investment sector.
Mm-hmm. So was your focus on commercial real estate, or have you been mostly on residential side?
More on the commercial side.
Mm-hmm. And is this multifamily, or are you looking into more the shopping center and office sectors?
We have the opportunity to do both. So, but more heavily, it was the multi-units.
Excellent. So let's talk more about, I believe what we were talking about was earlier, Authority Equity AI. Tell me more about why that company was started and really the thesis behind why you do this.
Well, for everyone that is listening, and probably I don't know if you were around back then, prior to 2008 market crash, we noticed how massively the trust between individuals it was becoming an open gap, and it happened because back then I was working with the hard money lender, moving around $140 million, and the only question we had was, this guy with this experience, with this much money, how come he's losing deals? And so we started doing a little bit of research on why was that happening. And again, this was after the market crash in 2008. And little by little, we started noticing that it was not only him, but it was more people losing attraction to capital and to investments opportunities. So as I was doing the research, I find out that it was not about marketing anymore, and it was not about handshake anymore. It was about the economy that it was changing globally. And so we dive into do massive research, and we find out that is because simply they don't have a strong signal. Fast forwarding now, I can tell you, and because we've been working with principals and politicians, I can tell you that this is happening more than what you think. A person that has 20% of your experience they have 200 advantage on you, and the only reason that is happening is because they have a stronger signal, meaning they can deal with London, Canada, Europe, Spain, Latin America from their desk, and while this other person that has $200 million managing, they don't have access to those transactions, they don't have access to those opportunities. And that's because they don't have the strong signal. They have the capacity, but nobody knows them. A month ago, we were working with this executive, and it's happening also there. She came out of this corporate, I don't want to say names, but she came from this big company. And she was, when they come out of these companies, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. And I told her, with this massive experience that you have, moving 57 markets, we're talking about $250 million capital. How come you're looking for a job? How is that possible? And she couldn't answer that to me. And so isn't this supposed to be the other way around? People are looking for you instead because you have that experience? Well, that example, it expands throughout of the ecosystem of global economy. So this is happening more often. And that's the reason we're in business, is because we see it more often. Now, we expanded to London. We do business in Canada. But within a month, we're going to be opening also in Spain and Latin America. Because, again, the economy, the redistribution of capital It's not concentrated in United States or Canada or London anymore. It's just going Middle East, it's going Latin America, it's going in Europe. So this is where these big whales, I call them, people that have the capacity, the scars and steel, the capital, the money, they need to have a strong authority. They need to reclaim their authority. And that's the reason where we exist.
Excellent. So what exactly does authority equity AI do?
So what we do in a forensic approach is we track all their experience, we identify the DNA they have, we see the experience they have, and we position them in the market so they can reclaim that authority, so they can reclaim those deals that are currently losing. Let me put it this way: when these companies, hedge funds, again, I don't want to mention names, but when these companies, they put a fund out there for people to manage that capital, they don't announce it on Facebook, right? They don't go to Instagram and say, okay, we're going to throw $2-3 billion for you to manage. They don't do that. So what they do is they look for people that have the authority, that they have the skill, the experience. And the only way they're going to have access to that capital is if they position themselves with a strong signal and authority. And so exactly that's what we do. We work throughout this process. We make sure that they have a strong signal, and that we make sure that the DNA is noticed by these other giants. And so in a way that they can connect and they don't lose those deals. So basically that's the process. They can go on to our terminal and they can read more a little bit of exactly what we do, how we extract all that DNA. And like I said, we only have 30 minutes, so it's 3 minutes is really not much for me to explain how we do it. But that's exactly what we do. We reposition and we reclaim their authority.
So you mentioned a very important concept about signaling. How does
Yes.
one have the correct signal to attract capital?
Well, one of the things that we need to keep in mind, and this is, we think that Facebook, we think the social media, we think the marketing is just noise. It's just comments and likes. That's what they do. So I was putting an example to this executive, and I was like, we can be thirsty and we can drink juice and water, but it's not the same liquid. And so marketing is exactly that. So when we think about it and we talk about the strong signal, it's not about the noise. Again, it's about reclaiming the authority that you lost. When these executives get out of these companies, remember, they come from big logos. I want to mention like Google or Facebook, all these giants, right? They come out of there, and when they're out here, they don't know what to do. And you can think that they have the knowledge on how to position themselves. They don't. They don't. And it's surprising. So again, what our job is to extract the DNA, their forensic experience, and position them in the marketplace so they can reclaim that. Again, these individuals cannot go out there and start looking for jobs or for opportunity. Somebody that is managing 100 million in the marketplace, that doesn't mean you have authority. You're managing a real estate transaction. That's it. But there is capital out there. There's much more money that can go looking for you, and instead of you looking for the money, if you know what I mean. So that's what's happening more and more, and that gap is just getting wider and wider around the globe. And let me finish with this. Going back to the signal, we think that we have all this. The planet is this big. The way we see it is we're coming so close to each other. So it's just coming. All this technology is making the globe to be smaller, not bigger. And so now you can transact any part of the world. But if you don't have that strong signal, nobody cares where you come from, and nobody cares how much money you have.
So these executives coming out of these companies already have a strong track record in their skill sets. But when it comes to positioning themselves as an authority, that's where they struggle. So what is the idea behind cutting through the noise instead of trying to get as many engagements, which doesn't really help? How do you cut through the noise and position yourself as an authority? What are those signals that position you as authority?
Well, the first thing we have to understand is we need to separate from marketing. A lot of these executives, they go after marketing. And again, I'm not going to mention names because their names are very private, but there's individuals out there, they're putting themselves, I don't know, Facebook or Instagram, right? And they're putting these comments and putting likes. That's not authority. That's not who you deserve to become. You're becoming a marketer, or they hire marketing, companies, and that's what they do. They get comments, they get likes, but they don't get opportunities.
Yeah, attention doesn't mean you're going to attract capital.
Exactly, but not only that is real conversations, real opportunities, real transactions, and we tend to think again that the capital is just focusing in one sector or in one country. It's not anymore. It's not. So if you really want to, if you're a millionaire and you really want to get more opportunity, it's not about marketing. It's about how you position yourself, even in front of a camera, is that important. And what you do and how you behave in the marketplace. Right. And that's what's happening. That's what we need to understand.
And I think this is a very niche concept, because another thing
it is
that it's niche because here's the thing: this podcast itself is also very niche, but it's niche to other mostly executives and entrepreneurs. The people who watch this podcast, the Apex Perspective, are over 85% are executives and entrepreneurs, right? That's what leads to tangible outcomes. Because if your audience are just potentially normal individuals who are in entry jobs, those are not going to be people who can give you capital. But that's why getting more attention is not valuable. Getting the right attention that leads to tangible opportunities, that's what's actually impactful. So how do you distinguish between being a marketer and attracting real opportunities?
Well, we have to extract. First of all, we recently released our study to 2026. It's available at our terminal. And you can read more about it. And we have about $22 billion that capital is sitting somewhere, and nobody's attracting that capital. That's one. Two, how do we position ourselves to get in front of that capital? Well, the first thing is we need to understand who you are, what you have done. How can we abstract that DNA, that forensic study from you, your persona, and put you in front of this capital that is ready to be deployed? So again, it is a process. It's not from one day to another. It is a process. Sometimes it requires 6 months for us to position you in front of capital in real conversations. It takes some time, but that's what we have to do. Again, if BlackRock is announcing to release, let's say, $22 billion in capital, they're not gonna promote it in Facebook, are they? Right? They won't. They're not going to go on Instagram and say, hey, here we have $22 billion in capital for you to manage. That's not going to happen. So there's a concentration. There's certain meetings that are happening right now in Canada. There's one that we're going to, and there's one that is happening in London. There's a specific meetings, but in order for you to be there, you need to position with authority.
And how important is controlling your demographic you're reaching important? How important is that in the process of controlling who your content goes out to, or who your authority is reaching?
It is really, it's not only behavior, but it's understanding who you're going to be working with. So for instance, a mindset, let's say Latin America, the mindset that these titans they have in Latin America is way different than the ones in London. Okay. But nowadays it's not about, oh, well, it is going to be in Spain, or somebody is having sent amount of money in Spain and they want to deploy it here in the United States. And just because the differences on, I don't know, the country and probably culture, that's not going to allow me to get access to that capital. That's not true. That's not true. So nowadays is, if you're here in the United States, right, but there's somebody that wants to fund, a few projects in the United States, but the money is in Spain, well, it's not about culture anymore. And it's not about a handshake anymore. It's about who you are as an authority. Again, we go back to this, and again, the gap is just getting wider and wider and wider. And it's a very, like you said, it's a very unique niche that we're in. We're not working with marketers. We're not working with this. We're not focusing on that. We're focusing on the individual, making sure that individual, if it comes to us through our portal and they want us to help them, we need to understand what is exactly that they're looking for. Are you looking for capital? Are you looking to position yourself as an executive for a certain company? You want to become a VP of a corporation? What is exactly that you're ambitioning, but you are not getting? So we need to understand exactly that person in order for us to position them in the right way, in the right direction, for the right country, for the right capital, and they can have access to those opportunities. Again, this is not about marketing anymore.
Right.
What happened in 1970s, 1980s, we were used to think about a handshake locally, two millionaires get together and they build businesses. Thumbs up, that was great. 2008, the disruption of the market, the collapse of the market, the trust went away. So it was not about the handshake anymore. Fast forwarding now, it's not about the handshake, it's not about the trust, it's about authority.
Right. And that's where you can naturally attract the right people, and not just attract the right people, but also lead to tangible outcomes from what I'm understanding. But a really important question to ask is, if an executive who has a strong track record leads a company and is trying to position themselves as an authority, other than thinking marketing is a good way to do this, what's another misconception about trying to position themselves as an authority where they do the wrong things?
I think one of the things that we have noticed with these mandates and principles is they're confused. And I don't blame them. When you're working for many years in a certain sector or a certain career, and you get out of that and now you want to do something else, you don't know what to do. I have an executive right now that she wanted to write a book. She wanted to do speaking engagements, but also she wanted to be a VP, but also she wanted... And it's just this tremendous list of things that they want to do. And I don't blame them, because it's their capacity. They have this capacity, they have this amount of money. But again, it's not about that anymore. There's so many options out there now that they can see and they want to reach and they want to grab, but they don't know how to get there. And so we need to, again, put them back where they need to be, do the process so we can make him understand what's their true DNA. Right. And try not to get confused on everything that is going on now. And so I guess that's what's happened. That's the first thing they have is that they get confused on what exactly they want to do. And they want to do a million things. And it's not, I don't blame them. They have that capacity, but there is an order for you to achieve those things.
Right. So get clarity on what you want to do, understand the difference between being a marketer and trying to become an authority. And then that's how you really understand how you're going to be able to attract the right capital or the right opportunities, basically. It's getting clarity on what you want to do and focusing on becoming an authority as opposed to just getting overall engagements, what I'm understanding here. So yes. What I'd like to do, and I love that thesis, I think it's very, very important. And it's a niche concept that not a lot of people understand until they understand what leads to real opportunities. So that's a really important component to understand. So far we talked about this as a very good thesis. I do want to ask one question about you, just in general, because I'm curious. What is something about you, Miguel, or about your life that you wish more people knew about?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I guess well, you got to be more specific on that one, because now my mind went all over the place.
Okay. I mean, is there something specific that you wish more people knew about in regards to your life or about you as a person? If you could tell them something about yourself.
Well, if there is anything, well, if it comes, I love reading. I love statistics. I like to read how the global markets move. Mm-hmm. I'm really thrive in those areas. I guess that's the reason why we build this company. I'm not a coach. I don't see myself as a coach or as none of that stuff. But if you have a specific concern, a specific question, I will make sure we do the research, and I can become a good friend of yours, and tell you exactly why you're messing up, if you know what I mean. So yeah. I guess that's one thing. I can become a very good friend, but I thrive on research.
Interesting. Awesome. So what I'll do now is share a very quick perspective on fitness and health, and then we'll go ahead and conclude the podcast with your plans for this year, whether that's going to be professionally or personally. The perspective I want to share, which is going to be extremely concise, is that a lot of people misunderstand what's required to make a health and physical transformation, and that leads them to do more than what they need to do. And if I can keep putting it in very simple terms, going to the gym 1 time a week can be a far more effective than going 6 times a week. And the reason I say this statement is because I'm trying to give a different perspective as to how you can make a physical transformation. If you look at the real way you make a physical transformation, there's only one main requirement. It's a negative energy balance. And this is according to the National Institute of Health and PubMed as well. What that consists of is getting the right amount of movement and having the right calorie intake. Out of these two, what takes the time is the movement. So how can you do that in a time-efficient way is the main question. As opposed to focusing on a location-dependent plan where you have to be going to one location and exercising, focus on a plan that you can do anytime, anywhere, which is location-independent. What I would recommend is leveraging something like step count, because step count is something you can do while you're watching this podcast, something you can do while you're traveling, or essentially anywhere there's ground underneath you can do this and adapt it to your schedule. So as opposed to you making time for this plan, you can essentially have this plan adapt to your schedule. So you can consistently actually be able to make the result, make the commitment required to get your results. That's the idea behind it, is identifying what's required to make physical transformation and restructuring how you achieve it. And the idea is you don't have to do a traditional plan where you're extremely dependent on having to go to one location. The idea is you can actually make it location independent and adapt to your schedule. And that's really the idea behind what I want to provide today, because a lot of individuals won't even start the journey, or will try to start it and not be able to continue because they structure the plan incorrectly. And that's the idea behind it. And step counts are actually what I use to lose over 70 pounds and actually keep it off. So hopefully it gives a different perspective today on health and fitness, and hopefully one that's actually doable for most people. So what we'll do then is go ahead and conclude this fitness conversation and move on to Miguel's plans for this year, whether that'll be professionally or personally.
Well, the plans for this year is that within a month we're doing an expansion to Latin America and Spain with this same deployment of helping executives, politicians, and others in this capitalist. So we recently opened in the Middle East, and I'm excited about it. We're working really hard on that sector. But within a month, we're opening there. So I guess the rest of the year is going to be focusing on doing a structure of how all these executives and all these people, because it's just we work with executives in different aspects and different walks of the life. So we're going to be able to see how they're going to get together, how they're going to develop businesses. And that's exciting for me because, again, we recently opened and we have a lot of attraction now. And so I'm excited for the rest of the year now that we're going to open in Spain and Latin America. And my focus is right now heavily on that.
And where do people learn more about you and what you're doing?
Well, easy. We only have a LinkedIn, and also they can go to our platform in authorityequityai.com. And you can learn more about what we do, exactly what we do it, how we do it. And again, we recently released the study 2026 of how this is hurting a lot of the executives and millionaires.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining on the podcast, Miguel. This is Aryan Mohindra.